we got to keep this in us and be messengers that the world is big. And in this particular juncture where there are superpowers vying for dominance and literally game theory at play, we are vessels to be able to understand how coexistence comes in so that as a world we can go far.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world.
Hey, welcome everybody again to another episode of As Unexpected. I'm thrilled to have Roy Baladi here with me today. Roy is coming from us all the way from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he's doing some super cool work, and I'm so excited to hear his story. Roy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, guys. Any follow fivers, super nice to see you all. And everybody else, hope you enjoy that episode.
Yeah. Roy, so you are in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, doing some really cool work, but you've had a long journey getting there, and you've been very entrepreneurial all along the way. Can you share a bit of your bio for everybody to get a sense of how it all started and how it's led to this current role?
I grew up in Lebanon, went to Virginia Tech, heard about semester at sea, went on a follow 5 voyage, changed my life. What I wanted to do is work on Wall Street. I had everything planned. Actually, when we were in India on the ship, I actually received a letter in the mail in Chennai saying that you've got a flight tonight to go to New York City and interview at Citigroup for your first job when you graduate. So I did. And then the offer letter came in China. And by the time I read it, signed it, I sent it back from Japan. That was, the kind of life that we had back then. And by the time I graduated, I had my job at Citigroup. It was just euphoria. I spent the summer before in the Dominican Republic working on building a middle school, and then had my life all set up. That was in 2006. Then you had the financial crash in 2007 and 2008. Citigroup took a big, big beating, especially the office in New York. I went through it, enjoyed it. But then the bug that I had in me from semester at sea, being able to see the world, being able to impact people and explore and not be tied to the major commercial capitals, the New York, London, Shanghai, Dubai now, where you could deliver on, just being on Wall Street and trading equity derivatives. I just wanted to see more than that. So I quit. I worked for a Kuwaiti multi-billionaire. Horrible move at the time. It could have gone either way, but turned out not to be the best move. I only lasted a month. But what I really wanted to do is to start a company after a lot of soul searching, and start a company called FreshGrad. FreshGrad.com helped you identify the right careers for you and answer the proverbial question, what do you want to do with your life, by asking you a series of questions, psychometric assessment on what you love to do, what you're good at, and then tell you what are the careers that match you, your natural inclinations, what are the jobs within it, do they sponsor visas, what are the career growths, who do you know at these companies. At the time, you could connect your Facebook and LinkedIn connections and take you to the job. I raised $1 million thinking I'd conquer the world. Instead, I lost $1 million and face planted and lost all my savings and found myself in debt.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That was unexpected.
And what came after that? How did you recover?
I recovered by realizing that all I had was a really good product that helped you find what are the right careers for you, because I was a washed up computer scientist 4 years out of graduation. I'm no longer 8 years out of graduation. Yeah, I worked 4 years on Wall Street, but I didn't have the Wall Street chops anymore because I had been 4 years out of the market. And when you're an entrepreneur, you do a bit of everything. So you don't even really specialize in anything. So all of a sudden, I really needed my product. Luckily, I had built it, and it was a very good one. So it guided me to a job. So I was in the East Village back then on St. Mark Street. That's, 8th and 1st. And it pointed me to a job in Union Square. That's like a 10-minute walk for a product and operations manager. I didn't know what product or operations was, but when I read the job description, I was like, oh yeah, I've done these things. So I walked there to a company called LearnBest and said, hey, I see your job. I applied to it online. I printed my resume. I printed the JD. Can I talk to somebody about it? The lady said, the office manager said, do you have an appointment? I said no, but hey, I read the JD and I can do it all. So can I talk to someone about it? She was completely confused. She said, did you just walk off the street? I said, well, yeah, I mean, technically we all did today to get to the office, and then took the elevator. And the lady behind her, at that point, she was like, it's also sassy, like, just get out of here. But it so happened that the lady behind her said, hey, I'm the chief operating officer. I'll talk to you for 10 minutes. But I just got lucky. I talk to her and I say, hey, I see the job. It's very unclear. My algorithm brought me here. What problem are you trying to solve? And she told me what the problem was. It was like scheduling between financial planners and then recipients of financial plans and knowing how to optimize that. And I told her, well, that's just a combinatorics problem. I learned that in, math. She said, combina what? And I explained what it was. And I told her how I would solve it. And then she brought in the hiring manager. And then 6 interviews later and 3 hours later, I had the job. And so I walked to the office the very next day, having negotiated that contract. And within 5 weeks, we solved that problem. And they're like, okay, just stick around and let's keep building this. So I had my job, and it was still like just a job that like could barely pay the bills. But at this point, I got myself out of the gutter and back onto at least the ground floor. I started to think a bit bigger, and I wanted to work this time, if I'm working in tech, in San Francisco. So I built another little product that helped me find mid-sized or early to mid-stage startups, found SmartRecruiters, and that took me off in a career in recruitment. Joined this seed stage or seed to bridge Series A company, pre-revenue. Lucky that I happened to have been in with an extraordinary CEO with a great vision, executed well, worked, morning to sunrise to sunset. 6 years later, left, and the company was making millions, was worth $1 billion. These success stories in Silicon Valley, I just happened to have hit a good one and executed well, and we grew. And then life took a completely unexpected turn and brought me to where I am today. But I'll pause here for air in case you have got any questions for me, Scott.
Well, first of all, there's just amazing stories embedded in all of what you've just shared. You've got the dream job that so many people seek, and that's on Wall Street. It wasn't satisfying, so you launch your own business, which fails. You get back on your feet, and using the tool that you built, you actually knew what kind of job you could get, and you walked right in. And maybe the biggest piece of advice that comes out of that, I think, for anybody listening is, what problem are you helping other people solve? And you went in with that lens. And it seems like you now have that embedded in what you bring. What problems can we solve?
Exactly. I teach that. Like right now I've been in the recruitment space for a long time. And whenever I coach job seekers, I tell them what they don't tell you. Well, there are 2 really good ingredients in an interview. There are tricks on how to land the interview, but once you're in the interview, you got to present yourself in 90 seconds in a crisp way, in a chronological way, where they kind of get a sense of your story so that they could repeat what you said. Just like right now, you just repeated roughly my storyline, at least until where I stopped. because then they don't know who you are. So at least they build a heuristic on you. But the second thing that I don't think anyone teaches is the sooner you can in the interview, ask them the question, what problem are you trying to solve? What problem is the job trying to solve? The more you're going to identify the bullseye. And when you identify the bullseye, you become interesting to them because they're not just generally talking about your story and trying to beat around the bush, trying to see if you could be able to theoretically solve a particular problem that they might have. They're telling you what the problem is. And when they tell you what the problem is, then you can go directly into your repertoire of stories and tell them how you've solved it in the past, or if you haven't, how you would solve it.
Love it. Love it.
You're
There's
that
so much in
memorable.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're running at least one, you're founded one company, if not two, and you're out of Riyadh. So how did you get there?
In true form, the reason why I left Wall Street is because I wasn't feeling impact. And the reason why I volunteered at the Dominican Republic is because I was seeking it. So while I was at SmartRecruiters, I had a chance to volunteer in a prison, in a supermax security prison called Pelican Bay. That brought me in and out of prison. I'd be there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 3 days, every 3-4 months, accompany a cohort of men across races who were trying to improve their lives, and improve their lives they did. I grew so much. It impacted me. It moved me. So just like how we feel when we think about semester at sea, and that only us alums can really understand what we did and what we went through as a group. That kind of experience was that profound, where you meet someone where the majority are in for having killed someone, but most of it is gang-related violence in their teenage years, and really see them shed layer after layer of all of that gunk that they've been accumulating, or that self-defeating beliefs, or that hatred on top of someone, or that deep shame, and then just unpack it all and then just be someone ready to contribute. But when they get out, and usually they parole sooner than they would have. But when they get out, it's like, how do you get a job when you have a criminal record, when you don't even have your ID, when you can't get an apartment, that kind of stuff. So my heart just went back into where it kind of wants to be, in solving problems for people that they really care about. Independently of this, Lebanon, from one day to the next, declared bankruptcy. And by that, I mean every bank went bankrupt. Every bank, imagine Money Heist on Netflix, except that it's a real money heist. And what I mean by that is that imagine waking up one morning with the news that banks no longer exist. You're like, what do you mean? You open up your wallet and you see the credit cards and you say, hey, let me swipe this. You go to the ATM, you try to enter it, or you go to the branch and say, yo, give me my money back ASAP. But everything's closed. You just have what you have in your wallet or what you have in the safe at home, if you have one. And that happened. I mean, I grew up there. So we're talking about my parents, my cousins, my aunts, my friends, everybody I knew. So a group of friends and I started a initiative to call onto the Lebanese abroad, because there's so many alums worldwide, to hire Lebanese in Lebanon through a job portal. Put that in place, launched it, and I just got so distracted with that I just lost all flavor of anything professional. COVID hit, it expanded, we could work remotely. With SmartRecruiters, I was going to build their non-for-profit and do what I was doing at Pelican Bay, but do that in a global way. But then it just kind of rescinded because COVID is COVID, and then there's so much uncertainty in the world that risk off moment. So I found myself having built a viral campaign called Jobs for Lebanon that is doing so much good and is getting so much thanks from people, and connecting a Lebanese person in Lebanon and landing a job with a data scientist, like a data science corporation in New York, or becoming a translator or become a science teacher or whatever it is that they were doing. And I decided to just do that full time and launch Jobs for Humanity, which would help returning citizens land jobs, but all other underrepresented groups like refugees, like job seekers who are blind, deaf, neurodivergent. And that started Jobs for Humanity, which is a family of job sites, started with a whole bunch of friends from all of these, set communities, where we built training programs for employers to know how to hire a blind person or how to make your sites accessible, and job seekers to know how to gain the confidence they need. Hence the good advice I said earlier on, like identify the problem of the job and things like that. And then build a community, have companies trust us and say, I'm opening up my wallet, train my employees. I'm going to mentor these job seekers. I'm going to post my jobs with you, and I'm going to offer more diversity. Well, then Trump became president. And Elon Musk said, hey, I'm in, and the problem of the world is DEI. I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk. I think he's an absolute genius. But the whole DEI part was just way wrong. If you're trying to balance the budget of the country and you're looking at DEI as a scapegoat, then look at, it's just, it doesn't compute, So these programs that just represented absolutely very less than 1 per 10,000 of the GDP were put at the forefront. And all of a sudden, all the hard work that I was doing with corporations just evaporated because they're like, hey, we're shelving this thing. So all of a sudden, I found myself orphaned, completely in an unexpected territory. But I got one grant that told me, look at Saudi Arabia and help women in Saudi Arabia who didn't have the right to work 7-8 years, or at least needed a male guardian, didn't have the right to drive. It was just harder to work. And launch a platform for them. I looked at the space and I said, oh, absolutely, I can do that. And I like the Saudi market so much because it's so buoyant. It's growing at such an incredible pace. It's opening up so much. There aren't many sophisticated players that I decided, and I speak the language. I finally got a chance to use Arabic again, and I was super close to Lebanon. So it just all made sense. Anyways, the rug was pulled from under me with the Jobs for Humanity part. So I said, you know what, I'm going to leave Jobs for Humanity in a place where I can not depend on it financially and almost give it pro bono and build up what is today Kanz, which means treasure in Saudi Arabia, which is an AI-powered recruiter that allows you to hire the best talent in Saudi Arabia with a special program for women. So that's how I got here.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesteratSea.org.
Wow, what a story! Can you go into more detail on Kanz and how it is really addressing perhaps skill shortages, labor shortages, upskilling women in Saudi Arabia, how it aligns with Saudi Arabia's overall economic mission and vision? Because it does seem like a very natural fit, but for our audience, there'd be a lot who don't know how this really fits in the overall strategy.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of context and background because most people are very intrigued by Saudi Arabia and the Gulf and the Middle East because it's one of the economic booming places. Yes, the hype is real. Yes, I just did not know what to expect when I landed, but I found the warmest people in an economy that's absolutely booming, where a lot of Saudis are just so happy to be here at that particular time. Tolerance is extremely high. Women can do pretty much what they want. I think more than half graduates are women right now. More than half of the business owners in restaurants, at least that's a random stat, are women. And if they put on the veil, it's by their own choice. They have all the rights that they seek. And even as I was building the women-only version of Kanz, a lot of women are telling us, no, you can open up to everybody. It's just only a matter of time until we fully catch up, at 50-50 parity when it comes to landing jobs and everything. So the economy is just superb. The country is really, really, really well managed. and the giga projects are insane. I'm here in a compound where some of the people that around me are telling me I'm working as an architect in building an extraordinary historic city. One of these giga projects, I could never have dreamed of working on this if I stayed in Paris, for example. I would be doing something much smaller. So that's roughly the economic landscape. It's a fairly big country that doesn't have like the full infrastructure, so a lot of it is being built. It is built on a desert, so temperatures get high. It's not humid, so it's very tolerable. And because it's built on a desert, as you can imagine, the land doesn't give you water or the stones that you build or the food that you have, let alone, fish. So, or much. So imagine the the infrastructure it takes to procure everything, to build everything, to build those services, and how it all comes. So you literally are building a mega city with mega projects within it. No, I wouldn't say from scratch, but in its nascent years, and it's about 20 years behind Dubai. So you can and they have the blueprint, and so all of a sudden it's semi de-risked because oil is still a thing and oil is still flowing. So net, and they're managing their budget well. So it's a safe space. Now, the problem that we're trying to solve within it is as everything grows, the first thing you need to do is incorporate. The second thing you need to do is to hire. And the third thing you need to do is to build whatever it is that you're building. And then the fourth is to sell it, no matter what industry you're in, whether you're building a hospital or you're trying to build a restaurant or a skyscraper. So hiring is in the line of fire, and it's early on. In a market that's growing, it's really needed. In a market that's stagnated, like, for example, if the economy is growing by like plus minus, 1%, then you can just go to the regular pools that you have. In here, it's important, it's valuable. So it's almost like having a commodity that's needed. Then the next thing is recruiting is the same problem anywhere in the world. You want to hire the best person at as fast as you can and within budget. That's it. In Saudi Arabia, they have a big quota where they said, okay, I see what happened to Dubai, where it's like almost all expats built it. Thank you for them. But what about our locals? Are they getting, a piece of the pie? Are they getting good jobs? Are they getting upskilled? Saudi Arabia noticed this and they said, okay, we want to put a quota of hiring Saudis somewhere between 30 and 80%. Depending on the activity. The more client and upper facing, the more Saudi. And then the lower, plumber, it's going to be less. But regardless, the solution that I came up with is to use AI to source, screen, pre-interview, pre-evaluate, and schedule the best person. But I'm using the modern product principles that I've used in San Francisco, where the best product is an invisible product. You don't need to use Scott if you want to hire somebody. You don't want to have to bring in a recruiter, or you don't want to have to deal with all the recruiter actions when most of these can be automated. And so what you'd want to do ideally is say, hey, even in a voice note, I'm looking for a program manager with videography skills. My budget is, for $5,000 a month. And I'll tell you, great. These are the next available slots. I book an hour and a half of your time and then schedule 3 interviews for you, almost like ordering an Uber. So that is the solution that we're launching. The engine is there. The interface for the Uber-like interface is there. The money is available to be able to do it. And so that's what we're racing towards. And then the second thing is to identify what specific niche are we going to go after, because we don't have unlimited money. So might as well get known in one particular segment. In terms of upskilling, we had a great chance to work with an organization that's in partnership with Google to offer AI graduation, like an AI course with a certificate, where you walk away with not just the knowledge, but an ability to build AI agents from scratch with no code. So we graduated 900 people in the last couple of months. And so now when it comes to the niche, we're thinking about finding pockets of money in Saudi Arabia because upskilling is important to offer that, but also as we find a niche of where our Uber recruiter is going to be plugged in, we're looking at potentially technology and AI thinking or seeking employers.
Yeah. Going back through all of what you've said, Roy, all the pivots, all the really meaningful interactions and commitments that you've made, making big moves, really big moves. It does lead, in my mind, pretty naturally to this quote that I want to read to you and have you react to. It comes from Meditations, obviously the translation for Marcus Aurelius. It's a fairly simple quote, and often in this book you'll find fairly pithy statements that have profound meaning. So I'm going to read it to you, and I'd love to get your reaction. It goes like this: what profits not the swarm, profits not the bee. What profits not the swarm, profits not the bee. So, given all of your work and how you seek to lift many up by all of the tools and systems and algorithms you built, I just wonder how that quote resonates with you.
I'd like to kind of make sure I understand it, because when you say profit, there's PROPHET and there's PROFIT.
Yeah, it means benefit. What doesn't benefit the swarm doesn't benefit the bee.
And what doesn't benefit the swarm?
Yeah, what doesn't benefit the swarm. So if you're only acting as the single bee to benefit yourself,
The swarm of bees.
without seeking to benefit the swarm.
Yeah. Of course. This is actually the biggest problem of the world. This comes to the heart of game theory. What I mean by that is, in today's world, everyone seems to be looking for a local maximum. The attack, like the tariff war. It's like, hey, I need to fix that balance with you. I need, like, my check and balance is that. It becomes transactional. Every person is looking for a local maximum, and it definitely does not benefit humankind to do that. We saw that exact same approach and mentality being used during COVID, because we happen to have had the same president that said, no masks? Why on earth? No masks for now. And therefore, that creates politicizing something and not all walking towards a particular goal. When you don't all walk towards a particular goal that's good for everybody, that's going to be good for the swarm, then you're going to run fast, but you're not going to run very far, because you're not going in the same direction, and all of a sudden that mega ball of productivity it's like infighting within the same team. It's never good. And we can really understand it because as Americans, we understand sports really well because we're indoctrinated within that culture. And if within our own team, we are not understanding our role and sacrificing a little bit, then we're unlikely to win. When we bring this back to recruiting, the benefits of opening one's mind and saying, okay, I'm going to hire from all types of different communities can be multiple-fold. On one hand, if you are a consumer-facing business and you hire people who come from diverse backgrounds, you're opening yourself up, not just to build a product that's accessible and that works for all because you just have to, but also you're starting to show a face that people can relate a bit more to. And if I were to tell you that there are 300 million people who are blind or have low vision in the world, 50 million in the United States, that's 1 in 6 that have low vision, then imagine Oh no, yeah, that is literally 50. 7 million blind and 50 million low vision altogether, blind and low vision. How much will your economic market grow by? Now, if I were to
If you
tell you
brought them
that the
in,
depth,
really brought them
yeah,
in.
well, of course, and that's a community that no one's looking at. If you're looking for pockets of growth as a growth marketer, well, here it is, right? All you have to do is give a bit more of an accessible product and reach out to the communities for the blind, and then you have this additional growth. And the only way you're really going to know it is if you've got a blind person on your team who's telling you, well, this is how you're going to access. These are the tools that we use. What's the cost of doing this? What's the benefit that you get?
Yeah.
That's one side. And I'm only talking blind. I'm not even talking about deaf. That's the same amount of number. If I'm not talking about neurodivergence, so autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and what you can do to make them better. And chances are how many you have already in your organization that are, but you just are not using them to their full potential. I'm not talking about people in wheelchairs. I'm not talking about people, all that. Another dimension of expanding, so your basically revenues, which is just a no-brainer because that is the goal of the company, is to expand its revenue, especially if it's publicly listed. It's just, it's all come down to a stock and people are buying it so that the price goes up. It's not even like a social good right now. It's an economic good to be able to tap into these markets. But a second thing that really helps is, what if I were to tell you, Scott, you've got a superpower. For the next 10 hours, you're not going to be able to see. However, you're going to be able to consume books at 3x the speed. And you're also going to be able to retain them at 3x the ability. And here is a research project for you to do. Now, you don't need to use your eyes in order to use the internet because it's already accessible. You already have all the tools you need. But all of a sudden, you can go at like 3x the speed with 3x the comprehension, and all of a sudden you're 10x somebody else. Wouldn't that be an advantage? Well, yeah. So all of a sudden, from a productivity standpoint, it's well worth it. And from a market standpoint, it's well worth it. But why don't we do it? We're not doing it because it's just my local maximum of hiring somebody quickly and not having to bother with this whole fit thing and having to adjust things makes it such that I'm going to go fast, but I'm not going to go far. That's exactly what I mean by, what doesn't profit the swarm doesn't profit the bee. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a great summary, great application of this. And for those listening, when he's quoting game theory, there's a classic model, the prisoner's dilemma, which basically indicates people acting in their self-interest may have short-term gains but long-term losses. Those who act with each other, in cooperation with each other, may have short-term losses, but they'll have long-term gains. And it actually has profound implications, just as Roy said, about how we work in the world, for sure. So thanks for bringing that up. Roy, we're right about time. Do you have one last key piece of wisdom or advice to share with our listeners?
Well, yeah, when I came to Saudi Arabia, I burst out of the bubble that I had been in for 20 years. Granted, everybody is in a bubble or another. There's an ecosystem of information wherever you are. And just like when I left Lebanon, went to the US, I burst out of my Lebanon bubble. And then all of a sudden I started to see a level of diversity that's just extraordinary, from, races to religions to everything. Then when I got to Saudi Arabia and I started to look at the perception that there is of, the Middle East, and I started to see the perception that there is about China. I just returned from China, and I went to a country that by itself is the size of the United States, geographically speaking, including Alaska and Hawaii. It's just slightly smaller than Europe, but population-wise, it's all of North and Latin America, plus Europe, plus Russia, plus parts of Africa combined.
Right.
And within 2 to 3 weeks, and I got to see a country that goes from millennia in terms of history, with the pavilions, with the old tea plantations, with artisans, with calligraphy when it comes to the writing. And I'm probably talking to a lot of Sassers, so we speak the same language when we say, okay, like we're curious when it comes to the rest of the world. But within that same trip, I got to see like in that, just crazy how it moved from this to seeing robots fighting in a ring. And being in a place where it wasn't even a major event. I just went in, checked on Gemini, and it told me that there's this free event happening on robotics, and I saw about 20 different robots. And I realized that, hey, we gotta not lose the kernel that we promised ourselves to be global citizens and bring that back, because we have an internal message by having been on that ship and having seen things that we cannot unsee and understand things during our reunion among ourselves, that we got to keep this in us and be messengers that the world is big. And in this particular juncture where there are superpowers vying for dominance and literally game theory at play, we are vessels to be able to understand how coexistence comes in, so that as a world we can go far.
Yeah, love it. Stay curious, stay open-minded, stay open to new adventures, breaking out of your bubble. All of that is so important today. I can't imagine anything that's more important, and you exemplify that. Roy, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I hope we get to meet in person sometime. I know I'll learn a lot from you when we do.
Me too. I would love that. And Dean John, if you're seeing this, stay hungry, stay foolish, learn that from you. We'll take that with me for as far as I go. Love you, and love you all, my SAS family.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.